We live in a country where politicians are more afraid of voters than voters are of politicians. That's how we want it. That feels filthier. That feels like a grosser part of rock and roll, but not what I think. And you know that.
Over to you, Chris.
I'm shook.
Cool story, comma, bro.
Welcome, everyone, to Whole Hog Politics. My name is Bill Sammon, joined by my old pal, Chris Stirewalt, author of Whole Hog Politics, the must-read political newsletter at thehill.com. Chris, are you ready for a Texas-sized show today?
You know I am, and you know that unlike a normal person, I have been waiting eagerly for elections, right?
Yeah.
Unlike most people who are like, is we going to have elections again?
You know,
for me, I'm ready. I want it.
It's fun, and we've talked a lot about the midterms as we've gotten closer. But now that they are at hand, you're right. It's a different vibe because now we have votes. So now it's real. First of all, the Texas Senate primary is on Tuesday. Secondly, the early voting in Texas wraps up today. It's been going on for like 11 days. And it's been really heavy voting, especially on the Democratic side. Let me read a quick excerpt from your column this morning about turnout, especially among Democrats. Quote, "Part of that surge is due to the fact that Democrats everywhere are fired up to vote, winning special elections from coast to coast. But part of it is also that Texas Democrats have stumbled into a hornet's nest of a primary between Representative Jasmine Crockett, the trash-talking progressive from Dallas, and State Representative James Talarico, the moderate-sounding liberal from the Austin area." My question, Chris, in your estimation, does the higher Democratic turnout in early voting bode well for Talarico or Crockett?
Who could know? Right. So you can go through the data and you can look at counties. It's great that in Texas we have all of this data to pour over and say, okay, so this county and that, and how did they vote before and what are they? Excuse me. But we should also remember, I don't think we've been here before. I can't recall a time, and maybe you can, where the Democratic Party in Texas was both thought it had an opportunity, but also had a choice. In 2018, which is sort of the analogous election, when Ted Cruz was up, Democrats were not torn between Beto O'Rourke and somebody else. It was, I hope we can get Beto O'Rourke.
Right. You didn't have that split between the liberal wing as much, the liberal wing and I guess the less liberal wing that you really see energize. That's really where the energy of the party is. And frankly, I think that's one of the reasons we're all watching this so closely is because, it may be a data point that is worth, looking at the broader midterm coming up in November, and even perhaps looking ahead to 2028.
Well, I want to be very careful about one thing. So we have what we could essentially say is no polling in Texas. We have. It's
been very grim.
It's a garbage situation. The University of Texas partners with YouGov. And YouGov has a poll that was conducted online over, dig this, Daddy-O, 14 days. They had an online poll going on for 14 days in a primary that was
changing
hour
very
by
rapidly.
hour. Yeah, hour by hour, where you have one candidate with low name identification, one candidate with higher name identification. It's trash, right?
Yeah.
These are the kinds of polls where I say, I don't even want to look at it. I have to look at it. I have to see what's in there. But it's almost worse than nothing. Well, Talarico has a poll, and it's conducted by a credible Democratic pollster that shows him in the lead. But that's an internal poll from him. That all of those caveats in place, let me say, this has so far not been an ideological fight, right? This has so far not been about who is more left. This has been a particularly damaging kind of fight, which is race, ethnicity, culture.
Yeah, because they're both pretty far to the left.
Yeah, I mean, Jasmine Crockett is, if we're doing hard score, you'd say she is more progressive.
Yeah.
She is closer to the Bernie Sanders, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the Zoran Mamdani, Democratic Socialist, when she's not one herself, but she's closer, obviously. But Talarico, as you say, is I'm sure, I assume, he would embrace the title of progressive.
Yeah.
But when you look at the data that we do have, the starkness of the black-white split, which is maybe not unexpected in a race where you have two principal candidates and one is a white man and the other is a black woman.
Yeah.
But something that everybody has to remember about Texas politics is that they don't have partisan, you don't register by party in Texas. But the Democratic Party in Texas, after the salad days ended, so let's say the 1980s, when the Democratic Party in Texas was relegated to minority party status, black voters in Texas, and we can think about people like Sheila Jackson Lee, and we can think about other notable Congressional Black Caucus members. The black voters became the bulwark and the backbone of the Democratic Party in Texas. And now you have Talarico trying to use white voters, and he's doing pretty well with Hispanic voters.
Yeah.
And so it's a charged atmosphere. And if Talarico does win, then the question is, will black voters come and support him the way that he would need them to in order to win a general election?
Yes, because as I believe we predicted some months ago on this very point, that the little polling that we do have indicates that Jasmine Crockett is really vacuuming up a lot of the black vote, and that Talarico is beating her to some degree with white voters, and I believe with Hispanic voters. But let me put up on the screen. We talk about the dearth of polling, of good polling, but we have what we have, and I want to put up the average of polls from our friends at Decision Desk HQ headquarters, DDHQ. And they're the best in the business. They have it. Look, again, you have only a couple of polls here, but they have it literally tied at 44.4% for Talarico, 44.1% for Crockett. Let's also put up, if we can, the Republican polls, because that's also coming up on Tuesday. This one has Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton ahead, 36.5, leading the incumbent Texas senator, Republican Senator John Cornyn, at 32.2. And then you've got the wild card Wesley Hunt, a congressman, two-term congressman from Texas, who is scrambling the race to some extent. Now, remember, in both of these primaries, the Democratic and the Republican, these are subject to runoffs. Now, there'll almost certainly be pretty much obviously going to be a runoff on the Republican side. And as far as I can tell, on the Democratic side, it's still possible, right? If they both fall short,
there's a third party candidate who, if it's very close, or not a third party, there's a minor candidate running who in previous elections has got 1.5 2 points. So yes, if it was very close, you could have a runoff.
Yeah. So Chris, but you write in your column today that, there's basically four possible outcomes in terms of realistic expectations. And in three of those, or I should say four possible matchups. Mm-hmm. And in three of those matchups, Crockett versus Cornyn, Crockett versus Paxton, and Talarico versus Cornyn, you would say that the Republicans would probably be okay, but it's that fourth matchup that is giving possible heartburn to the Republicans, and that's the matchup of Talarico versus Paxton. Explain to me why that is the matchup that Republicans are most worried about.
So the worst matchup for everybody is Crockett v. Paxton. This is an expensive Ken Paxton, if the polls are predictive and the top two are Ken Paxton and John Cornyn, and then Paxton wins the runoff, if the chalk is right, and that happens, he will come out of the primary extraordinarily damaged, right? He has been impeached. The most recent ad from the super PAC by the way, the National Senatorial Committee has funded that PAC as well. So this is like from the party proper, is so devastating about John Cornyn, or about Ken Paxton's personal life and his failings, and institutional and personal foibles. It really leaves a mark, so much so that Paxton had to put out his own ad with his daughter and son-in-law to try to tamp down some of that. So it must be having some effect.
Yeah.
So if it's Paxton versus Crockett, both parties have to spend both hundreds of millions of dollars in a race with two candidates who will not be broadly popular, right? Yeah. And in its own way, right, that's one that the Republicans can win, because if you lower the turnout and you get closer to the basic polity of the state, you'd expect if voters are holding their noses, yeah, you can bet on the home team. And
it sort of goes back to actually it's analogous a little bit to Trump versus Hillary,
right?
And even Trump versus Kamala Harris. They're all unpopular, and so people weren't too fired up, and yet the Republican won.
And as we've talked about before, in a Crockett versus Paxton contest, there will be the river of slime will overrun its banks and affect other races. The things that Jasmine Crockett says, because she is a outspoken controversialist, right? She is a insult comic, and her whole brand is built around, I mean, not talking to the press. I don't know if you saw what the Atlantic has been saying about being a reporter being identified and tossed out of a rally. But she uses social media, and she uses her platform in Congress, and I assume that she would use her platform as the Democratic nominee for Senate to talk trash and be radical. And that's something Republicans would want to use in other races. And Paxton and the sort of the quagmire, the ethical quagmire, plus some very radical politics, is something Democrats would want to use in other places. So that's the nuclear winter scenario for Texas.
Yeah.
Now, the one that Democrats are the most excited about, the one that you allude to, is that you get Paxton, and then you get a person who is still relatively little known, 36 or 37 years old, state representative from outside of Austin, in Talarico. Now, the Republicans will have plenty of money to define Talarico as a godless minister who is a phony and actually very radical, and they will do all of that, and it would be a very expensive race, but he could win it, right? Yeah. And that's the one where the Democrats feel like the collateral damage from the race would be much more on the Republican side.
Yeah.
And that's why you've seen all of this money spent to try to get Cornyn through, because the Republican, whoever the Democrats nominate, Paxton poses a problem for Republicans.
And the reason that we are paying attention to this, and it's an important race to watch on Tuesday, is because this is going to tell us something about, the midterm elections in November, the general elections in November, when the Senate, probably is going to stay in Republican hands. But if it's not going to stay in Republican hands, this would be a very early warning sign that there's trouble brewing, because they would have to lose a net, I believe, 4 seats, Republicans, for Democrats to take over the Senate. And this would be something that if somehow the Democrats could pull this off, they would be championing this, and they would have the wind in their sails moving forward.
A real good way for Democrats to catch up on that fundraising deficit that we've talked about, and how much more money Republicans have this cycle. If it is concluded that the Democrats have a legitimate shot of winning the Senate, you will see a lot more money come in, because basically, if the assumption in the world of PACs and those kinds of donors is, Yeah, the Republicans are going to lose the House, but it will remain close, right? We will continue to have another one of these 5-seat majorities or 8-seat majorities.
Yeah.
And the Senate, the Republicans might lose a seat, but they'll stay in control. There's a lot of interest in staying on good terms with the team that's in power now. If that shifts, right, you will see those donations. If you see let's say you got a Paxton Talarico outcome in Texas, these corporate interests and these donors are going to say, I don't know, maybe it's going to be different or worse than that. And that would be a sign that the conventional wisdom around the Senate is changing.
Speaking of the midterms in November, I was curious. I wanted to talk just for a minute about the State of the Union speech, which was given this week.
Is it still going on? Is it still on?
It's still on. It was over 10. It had to be over 10,000 words. I didn't go check what the word count. It probably was more closer to 12 or 13,000 words, but it was awfully long. But in fairness to Trump, I think it was from a political perspective, it was pretty effective speech. I was surprised at how little he did the weave. He did a little bit of freelancing. I thought he would do a little bit more than he did. So I'm sure Susie Wiles and others were rather pleased. And of course, he had a moment there where it was obviously contrived, where he asked the he asked the people to stand if you supported legal American citizens over illegal immigrants. And sure enough, as predicted by a lot of people, that was immediately turned into an ad that is Republicans hope will help them in the midterms. I think we have a piece of that ad. Can we show that ad taken from the State of the Union speech?
If you agree with this statement, then stand up and show your support. The first duty of the American government is to protect American citizens, not illegal aliens. These people are crazy.
Chris, I want to get your thoughts on whether that moment, as contrived as it was, will help the Republicans, as because they're looking for ammo here. They know they're in for a tough cycle here. They're almost in the sort of fetal crouch, if you will, just getting ready to get hammered on this thing. And so, they're looking for what do they have to work with here? I always say that what do we have to work with, whether you're a Democrat or Republican? And on the Republican side, this is something to work with, right?
Well, the president did, we talked last week about 3 things that the president could do, right? And the first order of business was to get Republicans back. When we look at the president's numbers with Republicans, they're still very strong, but now they start with an 8 instead of a 9. And his favorability and approval among Republicans is weakening. And it's the anxiety among Republicans. And I think we can still point back to the two shootings in Minnesota and Greenland as the moment where it was like, oh my gosh, what's going on? Right? Like, what is happening here?
Yeah.
And you've seen it on the Epstein files and a bunch of other stuff in tariffs in Congress, where Republicans are starting to get mouthy. And the president's first job was get the Republicans back. He doesn't have a big majority. He needs party unity, and he needs to play the hits. And he did. You talked about the weave. I think he was 85%, 90% on prompter.
Absolutely.
He did not go berserk on the Supreme Court. He did shake Amy Coney Barrett's hand. We had to review the tape like the Zapruder film, but he did in fact touch the hand of Amy Coney Barrett.
We had to get the reverse camera angle for that.
Exactly.
We did.
But all in all, right, I'm reminded of the Joe Biden speech in 2024, when Democrats were like, we got a problem with this guy. He is falling to pieces. And he gave he gave a State of the Union speech that if another president had given, he would have been hospitalized immediately after. But because of the low expectations for Biden, Democrats were like, yeah, it's okay.
He got through it.
He didn't fall down. So for Trump, it was, he did not go into a spittle-flecked rant screaming at people or whatever. We didn't see the same Trump as we saw in the press conference he had about the tariff decision. So that was helpful for Republicans, and it was good. Of the many reasons to detest the primetime State of the Union address as an institution, one of the big ones is it's not a unifying moment for the country. It is not a unifying moment for the country. The CNN every year does a poll after the State of the Union, and they say, wow, people really like the State of the Union. Who's watching? Who do you think at 11:30 p.m. is like, oh, I was glued to the whole thing, and I watched it. Whether it was Barack Obama or whether it's Donald Trump, nobody is hate watching until 11:30 p.m. and then is like, I would love to take a poll to tell you about how much I enjoyed that address. So the State of the Union is a bad institution as we have it, and part of the reason it's bad is that it has stopped being a unifying moment for the country, and it's a partisan this, that, and the other thing. As for the material question of can Republicans make Democrats pay a price for not standing up when Donald Trump told them to stand up? Maybe. Tell me the race, though. Which race specifically is the one where there are voters who are like, I'm ready for a change, but I am concerned that the Democratic candidate for Congress in my race is not respectful of Donald Trump's urgings on illegal immigration. There may be some voter. The president, let's see, he has a 20 that was a CNN, a good CNN poll or a useful CNN poll had, I think, a 27% approval rating with independent voters.
Oh boy.
I think this is self-talk for Republicans, and self-talk is important. I don't want to discount self-talk. Psyching yourself up into like, yeah, and we've got it is way better than, as you say, just in a crouch. So anything in this case is better than nothing. And I think the president achieved a lot of what he needed to do in the speech just by making Republicans feel good. And the best way to make Republicans feel good is to say, look at these terrible Democrats. They hate America, these garbage people. We're better than them. And if you continue that one click further, that's the core of the Republican message has to be the core of the Republican message in 2026, which is, yeah, it's weird. Yeah, it's not great. But look at these people. You can't go back to these people. These people are even worse than we are.
Yeah. Well, they even used the tagline on this new ad that specifically and purposefully echoed the tagline that was used in an ad at the close of the Trump presidential campaign, which is basically, Trump's for you, she's for they, them, Trump is for you. And they did some variation of this on the new ad, which is, these Democrats that are sitting, look at them, and Trump is for you, and they're for the illegals.
What Republicans really need is messaging independent of Donald Trump. That's what they need. So how many, by the way, we got hanging fire at the Supreme Court. We're waiting on it could be next week, a ruling on the Voting Rights Act that could reshape maps, right? And change a bunch of Southern states, if they are out from under the Voting Rights Act, could be doing what Texas did, and in a lot of new places. And this could be a big shift, and it could throw open that question. But let's think about the very small number of seats. So is it 20 seats where it's competitive, 25 seats where it's competitive? The Republicans if we're talking just about the House, the Republicans who are running in those districts need distance from Donald Trump. That's exactly what they all need. They all need the same thing, which is, no. I voted for the guy, but I'm holding him accountable. That's what everybody needs in a midterm cycle. when your party's in power, and it's particularly true when you have an unpopular president, you need the ability, as Republicans said, I've spent a lot of time, because I'm cool, I've spent a lot of time looking at the 2006. And the closest analog is 2018, right? Same president, same media environment, same, all of that stuff. But I've been looking at 2006 because I'm seeing some resonances here where, with independent voters and with people who are typically not open to democratic entreaties, that's where Republicans are right now. And that's not where they want to be. And to get out from under that, they need independence. They need separation from the president.
Yeah, interesting. Separation from the president. Today, the president is going to Texas. And I just read that he's invited all three Republican candidates to some visit that he's doing. So he's still playing them against each other, and he's not willing to make an endorsement. And of course, that's driving Cornyn crazy. Chris, I want to talk about snowball fights.
Okay.
Let's talk about snowball fights, because in New York City, there was a snowball fight that got out of hand, and it ended up with a couple of cops in the hospital, and it's kind of turning into a bit of a political issue. I want to show you a little bit of what we in the business call a SOT, sound on tape, of that snowball fight, if we have it. Jeff, do we have that?
He's snowing the ice. He's snowing the boys. We are snowing the
The head of the PBA says that the people who were involved in attacking the police officers should be charged criminally with assault on a police officer. I wonder if you agree with that, if those people can be identified.
I don't. From the videos that I've seen, it looks like a snowball fight.
Did the NYPD officers face any injuries?
I think that there were two officers who were facing lacerations on their face.
Call for prosecution of those who pelted them?
Look, I've seen the videos of this snowball fight. I think that it was a snowball fight.
Wow. The shrug emoji. He did the shrug emoji. And I think a lot of people are looking at that. And if you watched, more of that video, it was tough for some of these police officers. They're literally walking the gauntlet through this huge crowd of people that are not just throwing snow and ice at them, but in some cases coming up and just like smashing them in the back of the head with ice and snow. And that's pretty crazy. And the reason I mention it, Chris, we talked a moment ago about like Republicans knowing they're in a bad cycle. Mm-hmm. And they're looking for stuff that they can work with, whether it's the Democrats remaining seated at the State of the Union, whether it's, Mayor Mamdani shrugging off the injury of several police officers. Did he play that the right way, the mayor?
Well, I have not watched any of the video. I do not. I don't know. And I don't want to say I don't care, because that's too strong, but I guess the Zoran Mamdani is really killing the Republicans, because every time they think they have an outraged, like, can you believe what Zoran Mamdani said? Can you believe Zoran Mamdani? He knows what to do. Head on down to Washington and say, huh, buddy, Mr. President, who's my buddy? I'm your buddy. And Donald Trump loves him. Donald Trump in the oddest odd couple matchup that we've seen. Donald Trump is, and he talks about Mamdani all the time. He's a communist, but and Mamdani has done with the president what many foreign leaders and executives have done with the president, which is flatter him, make him feel good, give him props, stuff to hold up, make him feel excited. And Zoran Mamdani has very obviously convinced Donald Trump that one of his legacy projects can be getting to do in New York what Ed Koch wouldn't let him do, which is be the greatest builder in the history of all, to wipe away Robert Moses, and that Donald Trump will be the man whose footprint is laid across all of the 5 boroughs or 7 boroughs. New York. Again, I want to emphasize how little I pay attention to New York politics. But Mamdani really has worked wonders with Donald Trump and figured him out. So you have Republicans that are like, how do we put Zoran Mamdani in every race? To go back to Texas. So the Republicans are trying to make sure Jasmine Crockett wins. And so the incumbent governor, Greg Abbott, he's not sweating it, right? Greg Abbott is running for a 5th term. He's been governor for a long time.
He's promoting, promoting Jasmine Crockett.
So he's doing this thing that the parties do now, which is they try to meddle in the other side's election by running negative ads that are positive in the general or in the primary election. And what does he try to do? He tries to tie Jasmine Crockett to Zoran Mamdani. Republicans have this idea that Zoran Mamdani is going to be useful to them in other races. I don't think so, guys. I think he's figured out a way so far, and that may fall apart, right?
Yeah, no, that's a great point, because he was
a long way away.
As a foil. We all thought he would be the foil.
Yes,
when he was running, and now, I not only is he. It's so weird to see Trump cozying up to him on a weekly basis, but also I just saw some polling where Mamdani's polling is pretty good right now.
Pretty good
in New York.
The comeuppance. Those who the gods would destroy, they would first make king. Zoran Mamdani's comeuppance of actual governance is going to be a difficult one. New York is, I won't say impossible to govern, but it's very, very, very hard to govern. And he's in a crack on tax revenue and how does he get the money without all the billionaires leaving? But so far, what Zoran Mamdani has been willing to do is whatever he thinks it takes at a given moment, right?
Yeah.
He is a lot more flexible than his Republican critics, and that will back up on him too. And there's trouble ahead and blah, da, 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 da. But what I was told last year was that if Zoran Mamdani won the Democratic primary, and that it would be a disaster for Democrats nationally. And then I was told if Andrew Cuomo as an independent didn't win, that it would be a disaster for Democrats nationally. It may be, but I don't think people care that much about New York. Sorry, New York. And number two, Mamdani is politically gifted. He is not oleaginous, but he is flexible, man. That guy is like, okay, go down and suck up to Donald Trump, bring him some props, tell him he's the greatest builder in history.
Yeah.
Great, I'll do it. Which means the next Republican attack on Mamdani is going to be mitigated by, well, yes, and he is helping the president with the Donald J. Trump Memorial Housing Development for the blah, 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 blah.
You just, as I sit here listening to you, I can't help but think that you just laid out a future whole hog politics column, because there's a lot of insight in what you said about how unexpected this has turned out in regards to Mamdani. I want to go back to the State of the Union just for a moment, Chris, because one of the things that intrigued me the most was an aside that President Trump made about Marco Rubio in the audience, and I hope we have a little sound on tape of that. If we do, we'll play it right now.
I also want to thank the man they report to, Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Thank you, Marco. Marco got 100% of the votes when he was in confirmation. I think our next one was about 54%. You have done a great job, great Secretary of State. I think he'll go down as the best ever. My
question, Chris, is Trump consciously torturing his vice president? and I mean, is he? It seems like he's, and by the way, there was a story in Axios this week that said that Trump behind the scenes is increasingly buttonholing people in the White House and elsewhere and saying, who do you think's better, Marco or JD? and he's doing this with increasing frequency. My question to you is, what is the political angle here that, from Trump's perspective, in keeping everybody guessing about who he really backs for to be his successor? Or am I reading too much into it?
No. I think the one of the reasons people pay all of the money that they pay to go to places where they can be around Donald Trump is that he is always freelancing, right? Why is a Mar-a-Lago membership, or why is it worth it?
Yeah.
Because in between programming his sets on the iPad, he's like, and people want to be around him on the golf course because he just talks about it. He's just asking people. This is what drives people who work for him in the White House crazy, is you got a plan, everything's set. And then I ran into one of the first times I started to understand what Donald Trump was about was he was giving a rally down in Alabama, and he said to this football stadium, like a college football stadium or high school football stadium full of people, he started talking about what Carl Icahn had told him. And I thought, well, I don't know the SWAC that Carl Icahn, the merger master of the 1980s, carries in southern Alabama. Donald Trump is always in a state of becoming, and he's throwing it out there. And so I'm sure they get a plan, and then he runs into somebody on the golf course or at his club or someplace, and then comes back and is like, well, now I'm thinking this. And so then they gotta figure that out. I assume that this is part of that, which is he's throwing it out there and he likes to talk about it. He's an analyst and enjoys all of that. We now have some polling out, and the Rubio boomlet that had taken place. I'm afraid for the Rubio enthusiasts that Marco Rubio is still the elite position. You know, these betting markets drive me crazy because they're a self-licking ice cream cone of the same. There are no inputs into the system. Yeah. It's politically obsessed people betting on what other politically obsessed people think about. But Emerson has a new poll out. And on the Republicans, Rubio's behind, and this is consistent with everything else. He's behind Donald Trump Jr.
Wow.
And he's in third place, and JD Vance is substantially ahead.
Yeah.
And I think, I guess I'll put it this way. If you are Marco Rubio and you've already said, if JD Vance runs for president, I am not running, I want to support him. That means that you think that 2032 is okay. Because, I mean, I think the likelihood of anything can happen, and the Democrats can definitely. But if you're a betting person, the idea that the Republicans would hold the presidency again,
for four cycles in a row,
it's not
that any party could hold.
It typically people end up choosing change, and it's da 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 da. But if you're Rubio, that you say, I'm not even going to do it. I'm not even going to do it. That's a pretty the numbers would indicate that rolling the dice on 2032. Now that Marco Rubio, here's what Marco Rubio is that he wasn't in 2016. He is a household name. It's complicated, but he is a household name now, right? Marco Rubio is not an insurgent kid coming from nowhere who's trying to take down his former benefactor, Jeb Bush. He's like part of the furnishings of the Republican mind.
Yes. He's part of the firmament.
Yes.
But I mean, look, I think that's all true, but I'm less interested in whether Rubio, and by the way, I will say this, the business of him saying, I support JD Vance and I'm not interested. I happen to think that that's the smart play, even if he is interested.
Oh, sure, of course,
in
yes.
2028. I don't take him at face value that, oh, I'm only looking at the future.
Bill, are
I
you
think he's
suggesting
looking-
that a person would change their position on whether they were seeking office?
I
After
just
saying
think
they
it's
weren't? I've
smart
never
to
seen.
position yourself that way, because the alternative is really unpleasant. To do a frontal fight with the sitting vice president while you're the Secretary of State just makes no sense. But I'm more interested in why is Trump doing it? I mean, why is Trump kind of teasing and, publicly praising and kind of flirting with the idea, like, oh, Marco, I mean, is it to keep his own VP in line, or
I think Donald Trump thinks about his legacy. Second-term presidents think about their legacies a lot. I don't know that anybody has thought as much about their legacy as Donald Trump, right? It's a lot. And whether it's his presidential library or the list goes on. And this is, of course, relates to his finances and his family's wealth, and it relates to, but he wants to be on Mount Rushmore. He wants all of this stuff. Part of a legacy project, of course, is who's your successor?
Yeah.
Who will come after you? How much did Ronald Reagan want George H.W. Bush to be his successor? I don't know. Right? I know that they did not have a perfect relationship. They harmonized eventually, and they got.
How much did Bill Clinton want Al Gore to be?
Well, that's what I was going to say.
That's
what I was. And
really interesting question.
And Al Gore made it weird because those were the days in which having admitted to the nation that you had assignations with a 21-year-old White House intern. Can you imagine now how all of that would be received in the post-Me Too, post-Epstein era?
Secretary of HHS, Bobby Kennedy Jr., telling some podcaster the other day that, I used to snort coke off of toilet seats. I mean,
whatever.
And no one even, it wasn't even a headline.
Well, he's definitely
got his I forget, he was up for defense secretary or whatever, and his nomination was scuttled because there was I guess he had been, there was rumors about him drinking or something.
Well,
those days are long gone.
When you tell stories about taking a dead bear into Central Park as a gag, or beheading a whale, or that you had a brainworm, and you get confirmed anyway. And by the way, the confirmation of the Surgeon General is the sort of final insult to the anxious moderates and normies in the Senate. The lady who didn't,
because she wouldn't speak clearly on the measles vaccination or these other vaccinations,
but did speak clearly on hallucinogens, and doesn't really have, and it's a fake job, and we don't really need a Surgeon General, and it's something we should probably get rid of anyway.
Right.
But it is for Susan Collins. It's like a final thumb in the eye from the Maha people, and also you're going to need to vote for this lady to do this stuff. But on the why Trump and Rubio and Vance, it's going to be extraordinarily hard for Donald Trump to give up power. Many people think he might try to not give up power. Certainly he did it before, right? He tried to hold on to power after he lost. It's going to be extraordinarily hard for Donald Trump to give up power.
Yeah.
He will be 83 or something like that. But choosing a successor, designating a successor. So for both Clinton and Reagan, it wasn't up for debate, right? I will back you. And if I become your vice president, you're going to back me, and I'm going to run for president. And that's where Trump is supposed to be right now, which is J.D. Vance is the designated successor. He supported me. I will support him. And that's how this is supposed to go. I think it's just going to be hard for Trump because as he gets close to the end. Oh, and the other thing he'll be thinking about is what kind of pardons and what kind of favors can I obtain from the successor administration? So it's going to be a real thrash.
Yeah.
And J.D. Vance ought to know, I'm sure he does know, is that it will not be a straight line. It will not be simple and oh, okay, so it was me and now it's you. Good luck. we wish you all the best. It's going to be a real basket of snakes.
By the way, I should remind our audience, Chris, that anyone can receive your newsletter, Whole Hog Politics, for free by simply clicking or scanning the QR code that's on our screen right now. You scan that code, you'll be able to get Whole Hog Politics delivered to your inbox every single week. Also, I should, while we're at it, let's just mention, you and I both work at The Hill.
True.
And also at News Nation. But you, Chris, have a Sunday show that you host every week. It's called The Hill Sunday at 10 a.m. Eastern on News Nation. Chris, anything interesting happening this weekend as you prepare your show?
We are getting down to it. We are in on midterms. We've got the chairman of the Texas Democratic Party is going to be with us. We've got the chairman of the Republican National Committee. What do you think about that? Pretty cool. We've got it's Kendall Scudder is the name of the Texas Democrat. Joe Grutters is the chairman of the Republican National Committee. But we also have an interesting conversation that I think you'll like. Todd Young, senator from Indiana. We're trying on the show now to do a little more deep dive stuff on particular issues. And Young has a bipartisan proposal to rebuild what I think we used to call the merchant marine and have more U.S. built ships and more U.S. shipyards. And it's an interesting conversation. It involves references to Adam Smith. It turned into a surprisingly deep and complicated conversation around the topic. So that was good. I really enjoyed that. And so we'll show that to you. And of course, we'll have our best in the business panel of journalists.
I love it. I'll be watching. Chris, I want to ask about one other topic, and that is Gavin Newsom. We've talked a lot about his skills, his political skills, and he's been quite successful in getting himself to the top of the heap when it comes to possible presidential contenders for 2028 on the Democratic side. But he had a bit of a stumble this week when he was talking to, I believe, a podcaster. And I want to show a clip of what he said if we have that. That's a clip of Gavin Newsom.
I'm not trying to impress you. I'm just trying to impress upon you. I'm like you. I'm no better than you. I'm a 960 SAT guy. You've never seen me read a speech because I cannot read a speech.
Some people, I don't think he meant to be demeaning, certainly to African Americans or to anybody, but it didn't come off quite right. And I think some people, jumped on him and said, "Look, you're basically saying, yeah, I'm dumb, like you're dumb like me. We're both dumb," which was unfortunate. So self-deprecation goes a long way in politics. It can go a long way, but you also got to have the fingertips to do it. What does this little gafflet tell us about his political skills? Because you're on the big stage now. This is, if you're the front runner, and running for the president of the United States, man, this stuff matters.
Yeah, it does. The Republicans want. There's a little Mamdaniism here. The Republicans are trying out how they're going to take. Gavin Newsom is so. That same Emerson poll that put Donald Trump Jr. ahead of Marco Rubio on the Republican side, on the Democratic side, has Newsom 4 points ahead of Pete Buttigieg, who is 3 points ahead of Kamala Harris, who is 4 points ahead of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who is 2 points ahead of Josh Shapiro. And Republicans want to figure out what's the Gavin Newsom kryptonite. What's the way that you do it? But I don't think it's one thing. I do not think that the Republican attacks on Newsom for allegedly being racist to black people because he was in a predominantly black audience answering a question, and he was talking about his dyslexia. I don't think that hurts him in the primary, particularly because I haven't heard anything from any Democrats or any Black Democrats or anybody saying anything about that on the Democratic side. But this is how the Republicans will keep workshopping their general election attacks on Gavin Newsom. Like, how do you build your general election? Which arrows can you put in your quiver for the general election? And I think for Gavin Newsom, a child of privilege from a wealthy California, politically powerful and wealthy California family, the guy who went to the French Laundry during the COVID lockdowns, and the guy who is patronizing that I'm just like you. That's a pretty good one, right?
Yeah.
He's not John Kerry because he's a pretty skilled politician. But there's some of that, right? Thirsty, ambitious.
Yeah, and there was a picture that's I've seen a lot. I hadn't never seen it before, but in the last week I've seen it like 7 or 8 times. It looked like it was from his college yearbook. I don't know, or maybe it was his high school yearbook, where he's very prepped out and he's got the hair slicked back, and he's sort of obviously posing as he reads a magazine or something, and it just screams, Vineyard Vines, prepster or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And you could see Republicans workshopping that too.
Yeah, and so that's as they build out their argument about him. And look, if it is JD Vance versus Gavin Newsom, which would be it's a low degree of expectation, but it would be the most expected outcome. The Democrats have their JD Vance material, right? They know where to go on JD Vance.
Yeah.
And
Republicans are still building their dossier
on Gavin Newsom. And rather than attacking him principally as a California progressive, I think attacking him as the Bush people attack John Kerry as a flip-floppy, unserious kind of a wannabe. That probably has pretty good resonance. And so Gavin Newsom will have to, as you say, on the big stage, he will have to be extraordinarily cognizant of reinforcing those narratives. And it's a tough sell for him, because he can't go like roll up his shirt sleeves and be with the people without appearing to be pandering. And that's probably the lesson he and his campaign should take away from that experience.
Yep. Folks, that's all the time we have for today. Again, I'm Bill Sammon, joined by my old pal, Chris Stirewalt. We will see you next time on another exciting edition of Whole Hog Politics.
Sweet.